Attention Sleepless Knights. Thank you for consuming this OSI 74 product broadcast, live from the Black Knight satellite. For optimum performance and safety, your host, Mr. Lobo, asks that you please listen to these instructions carefully. When in a hospital or other healthcare facility, observe the restrictions on the use of electronic devices. Switch off before boarding an aircraft to prevent interference with communications systems. Do not operate this device in the presence of flammable gases or fumes, chemical plants, or where blasting operations are in progress. Always listen hands-free while driving a vehicle. Failure to observe these instructions may lead to immediate termination. It's time now for the show to begin. Thank you. Have a very pleasant evening.
You're not dreaming, but Mr. Lobo wishes he was. This is the Sleepless Knights podcast somehow. This is your extra sleepy, extra low-key horror movie host, Mr. Lobo. I fell asleep sometime this afternoon. I just woke up a little bit late for the podcast, so I have to apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I'm drinking my coffee here. Trying to get awake. Paul and I are supposed to, I believe it is a episode ending in a 1, so that means we're going to have to probably not talk about something, which is sort of our tradition here, which I guess is, I mean, you don't really have to prepare much to not talk about things. As you know, things have been really crazy here on planet Earth. A lot of things are going nuts, and I think that's why everyone's sleeping weird. You might be sleeping weird at home. Please tell us in your comments whether you've been sleeping weird. I know that Abezilla has been on the loose. He's been destroying his way across the country, crushing buildings, and I think he's in the Midwest now. He's, he's eating those giant hay bales like they're shredded wheat.
You need to soak those things in a lot of milk.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Oh, I'm in this episode? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, you are. I didn't introduce you yet. I kind of meandered. I'm sorry, okay. Paul. I know you're still out in space, but down here on Earth, Paul, I don't know if you can see it from space, but Mittens Kong has been tearing things up in Florida.
Who?
Miss Mittens has a gorilla body now and is giant. You didn't know any of that?
When did that happen?
I don't know. It just happened. But anyhow, so Miss Mittens is now Mittens Kong, and then we've got Abezilla, and they're in different parts of the country now, and God help us if they ever get together, but we'll leave that for another episode. We're here at the OSI 74 headquarters. Paul is out in space. How's things going out in space, Paul?
There's a lot of space out here.
Well, that's to be expected, I guess. This is Paul Sanders of Bestow TV, if this is your first podcast, right? That's the thing that Stan Lee says, right? Every podcast is somebody's
Was it Stan Lee? I heard
first.
Somebody told me earlier it might have been Jack Kirby.
It could have been. Well, Stan Lee gets the credit for it, and that's all that really matters. We've been having a hard time figuring out what not to talk about. The very first episodes, what was it, Paul, that we didn't talk about? It was Star Wars, right?
I think so. I don't know.
I think not a Star Wars pilot.
I mean, who talks about Star Wars anyway? That's like a lame geek thing to do.
Yeah, we're not nerds. We don't talk about stuff like that. So the first one was not a Star Wars pilot, and I think we were just making a point that lots of people talk about Star Wars. And it's kind of like a thing. It's like a Monday morning Lucas is what I like to call it. And I always feel like I always have that post-Star Wars conversation hangover where I'm talking to myself in the bathroom mirror going, oh, God, did I have that 4-hour Boba Fett conversation again? I am never, ever going to do that again. And then, the next time I'm at a party, I'll meet someone I haven't talked Star Wars with, and then I have that same goddamn 4-hour Boba Fett conversation. I feel like a damn fool.
I've added an hour. You want to hear?
Now it's a 5-hour Boba Fett conversation.
5-hour Boba Fett.
5-hour Boba Fett. It's just one little rocket pack that you eat. It's a shot from your wrist into your mouth. Gross. Anyway. This is not about Boba Fett. We're certainly not talking about Star Wars, not talking about Star Wars again. and then or just not talking about Star Wars, but we're not talking about it tonight. And then we
can talk about it.
I guess we can. I think we had we did a not a Jurassic Park episode, right, Paul?
Sure.
Paul, are you even paying attention? You're not watching Groundhog Day again, are you?
Why would I watch Groundhog Day? Chips.
Are you eating Grandpa Nana's?
Yeah, Papa Giorgio's, Hungry Times, salt and vinegar chips, whatever the hell
This is why
called.
we can't keep a sponsor, by the way. Anyway, so we did an episode, whether or not Paul will confirm this or not, we did an episode not talking about Jurassic Park, which I believe every episode ending in a 1, we've been not talking about something. And we had Not an Infinity War as an episode. Mm-hmm. And then we did another not a Star Wars reboot, which I believe was one of our return episodes, right?
Right.
One of our more current ones.
Mm-hmm.
And how long have we been back to already be at another not a whatever episode?
Apparently 10 episodes.
Wow. So this is our 10th episode anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. Well, anyhow, we're going to try to come up with a not thing to talk about. And we usually look at your suggestions, your responses, and apparently it's just like one guy who actually cares and gives us suggestions for our not to talk about episodes, because I feel like we took suggestions from Paul before.
I give suggestions all the time.
Yeah, not you, Paul. Other Paul. Paul Tidd.
Oh, who cares about him?
Well, he's more likable and handsome, more likable and younger.
I'll give you that.
All right. But anyhow, so Paul,
yep.
Paul Tidd. I'll just say it all as one word. Paul Tidd versus Paul. Paul Tidd wanted us to do a Not a Scoob episode. And I feel like since we don't have any better ideas, we should just go ahead and not talk about Scoob, the movie Scoob, in this episode. What do you think, Paul?
I was just about to start the movie Scoob because I just bought that today, and I was going to sit here with the corn chips and enjoy a little bit of Scoob so that we could talk about it this episode. But
you paid money for that? You actually paid money for the Scoob movie?
I paid double because it's Scoob.
I mean, I loved the original Scooby-Doo. I loved Scooby-Doo when I was a kid. I loved I think in the early 70s, there was, I think it was weird because it kind of bled over the counterculture of the 60s into the early 70s. And it's like, don't trust anyone under 30. Everything that your parents tell you is malarkey. And the Scooby Gang, they were skeptics. They weren't filling you with a bunch of garbage. They were trying to figure out what the real deal was. They were getting to the bottom of the muck, and usually it was the adults have it wrong. It was the man all along. They pull the mask off. It's not we're being fooled. We're being hoodwinked. It's the young people are figuring it out and finding out what the real truth is. And I think there was something very, very positive in that, especially if you were a kid who was scared of ghosts and scared of monsters like I was, because I had an overactive imagination. I thought there were monsters under my bed and in my closet. And then I just realized it was just probably some rich antique dealer trying to scare me.
Probably was. It's not too far off. I mean, I hate going to the flea market because the antique dealers, they just walk up to behind you and bastards. Fool me once, exactly. Shame on me. Fool me 76 times.
Can I help you? Would you like to buy this old lawnmower?
Wait, that sounded very familiar.
Jinkies. It was Mr. Lobo all along. Then in the 80s, I think because we had Reaganomics and, it was a much more conservative time in the 80s. They kind of flip-flopped and made Scooby-Doo a little more fantasy-based. They brought Vincent Price in there and Scrappy-Doo and that Hispanic kid, which I can never remember his name.
That's racist.
Is it Pablo?
See,
it just gets more racist, right?
Yeah.
Taco Tony.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm brown. I can just say all the racist things I want to. They had that kid who was so memorable. They spent a lot of time developing that character and not making him a hollow stereotype because we can totally remember everything that character was about. They were doing like the Friday the 13th, the series gig, where they were trying to collect all of the haunted objects, and the ghosts were real in the 80s. You know, I feel like they always try to match the times, or they try to match the times, whether to be more skeptical or more cynical versus more fantasy based. I think that's a lot of the problems that, you know, Warner Brothers is the parent company of Hanna Barbera, right? Isn't that still the case?
I believe so.
I mean, that's kind of what's happening here with this whole release the Snyder cut, the Zack Snyder thing.
Wait, they made a Snyder cut of Scoob?
Yeah, release the yes, release the Velma cut of Scoob. It's sort of relevant in that way because they're always kind of flip-flop their approach with these different properties. And right now, for whatever reason, DC, which is Warner Brothers, right, owns DC properties and Hanna-Barbera, right? It's all the same.
Yes. Well, technically AT&T now owns all of that, but
oh wow. I like my cartoon characters and comic book characters to be fantastic. I don't need them to be too grounded in reality. And Warner Brothers said something recently that was somewhat upsetting, where they basically said there's no place for a traditional Superman anymore. Like they don't feel like there's any relevance to having the blue and red, the blue suit and the red cape and the, you know, they just feel like they've got to somehow make him dark and gritty or he just won't work for today's society. And I want to say, hello, the 30s were horrible. The 70s were horrible. Superman is not with the times. Superman is an antidote for the times. He's never with the times. Right? He's a breath of fresh air. He is a Superman. He's not he's not supposed to be relatable. It's not like your average dude man. They made Captain America work. They could just follow the template for what made Captain America work. And they could make a decent Superman that's, you know, not this weird, not trying to make him into a biker or trying to make him dark and brooding like Batman. They already have Batman. Does every character have to be the same? We'll talk to Paul Tidd during the break. We'll try to figure out what our pants are all about. So does Superman need pants? Does Scooby-Doo wear pants? Are they trying to put pants on Scoob? I haven't seen a lot of Scoob, so maybe that's what we won't be talking about it anyway, so it won't matter.
You want to see a lot of Scoob? Is that what you're trying to say? You shouldn't put pants on Scoob because you want to see more of Scoob? There's something wrong with that whole sentence. I'd like to take it back, please.
All right, we'll strike that from the record, and we'll be back with more nonsense after this.
With 30 years of your favorite children's shows, it's the ABC Saturday Preview Special.
Hey, thanks very much, and good evening. Now, for the next 30 minutes, it's going to be Saturday morning. Now, if you were a kid any time in the last 30 years, you know that Saturday morning is a time that belongs to the young. Parents are allowed to watch, but only when accompanied by a kid. Tonight, we'll be recalling 3 decades of Saturday mornings on ABC and the special friends who made growing up just a little more enjoyable. And we'll also introduce you to some new friends that you'll be meeting this fall here on ABC.
My favorite Saturday morning show is Richie Rich. I remember Rocky and Bullwinkle, and I remember Roy Rogers and Dale Evans.
Beanie and Cecil, and Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Pac-Man.
Used to be the Jetsons.
Well, I like Sky King because of the planes and everything. I always enjoyed planes.
Oh, now you remembered some of those. You didn't remember some of those.
No.
I tell you what we've done. We've invited an expert here to explain to us all about Saturday mornings. This man has had years and years of definitive experience. Please welcome the eminent authority, Dr. Emmanuel Lewis.
Thank you, Dick. Everything has to have a dog in it. Observe. There's Goober, the ghost dog.
Now observing all, as I, a super humble janitor, in the flick of an eyelash, become the super scourge of the underworld.
And Hong Kong Fooey. dog, yuck. The great detective, mumbling. Marmaduke. Time traveler, Mr. Peabody.
To a small studio in Florence, where we'll visit that great genius of the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci.
Robot dog, Dynamite.
That's me, dog. Wonder.
And Richie Rich's dog, Dollar. I mean, dogs are great. But enough already. Thank you.
We'll return after these messages.
Gather together from the cosmic reaches of the universe, here in this great hall of justice, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Superman, Batman and Robin, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and the Wonder Twins, Jan and Zainab, with their space monkey gleek, dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind. They are the Super Friends. Why? Paul, why? You don't have to keep bumping. You can stop the bumping. Yeah.
Oh, I was in a groove.
That's fine. I understand the groove. The groove is in the heart.
Dun 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 dun. Groove is in the heart.
It's delight. It's the lovely. Paul, seriously, do they think that audiences can't handle that much goodwill, and it just people are not interested in a upbeat, fun, non-cynical, Super Friends-like version of the Justice League?
I mean, it's like we already live in a world where we accept Captain America, and we accept a rocket-faring raccoon in a tree, a talking tree, and Spider-Man, and all these other like out there things, and then it's like Superman has to be gritty and real, or everything has to be about Batman, Joker, and Harley Quinn.
I guess because Batman is grounded, right? He's not technically a superhero.
I guess because his superpower is his wit.
His money.
His money and his mind.
His money and his mind. His mind on his money and his money on his mind. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it just because they're just trying to please a bunch of bitter 50-year-olds?
Is it that they're trying to dodge paying, was it Simon & Schuster? No, it's not Simon & Schuster.
No, Siegel and Schuster. Yeah, and that might be it with Superman. With the case of Superman is that we're talking about the 25%. This is almost beyond that, where it's like, okay, well, this character's his look is practically public domain. Either they don't want to compete with all the product that's out there and try to have something that is somewhat new or that they control, or maybe they don't want to pay any more royalties to the family or estate of Siegel and Schuster. You know, there might be some devious reason why they can't commit to the standard Superman. I mean, that's already a thing. It's an iconic, a thing that it was old when I was a kid and still cool.
Right.
That's the thing that I don't understand, is that it was old. It was old when we were kids and was still cool. And the 70s were bleak and gritty and miserable, and we were in a economic recession and a malaise. The 30s were bleak and miserable, and we were in a depression. And Superman was the antithesis of all that, which was why he was so popular. It's not like there were ever any real people running around in red and blue tights lifting up tanks. It's just that's a fantasy concept.
Is it just that Marvel got there, so we can't be Marvel, so therefore we can't have any fun? Everything has to be exactly stone cold the opposite. We have to be stone-faced with everything. Everything has to be so goddamn serious. I
don't know, because I saw Birds of Prey, and that was basically I could just see the memo on a napkin. How about Punisher for girls? I mean, it's just like it was so like dialing for dollars, kind of like, a bunch of pop culture references and a bunch of music and a bunch of, they were like, look, same thing with Suicide Squad. They're just not very good at it, you know. But the thing is that they're trying to do the cynical humor. They're trying to do kind of a snarky humor with Harley Quinn, and I don't think that they're very good at that either. I think that they're worried about playing their own strength with a straight face, which is that they're kind of the originators of the superhero legends. The Marvel stuff was the counterculture. It's like the heroes, the Marvel heroes of the 60s were counterculture versions of the DC heroes of the 30s and 40s. Spider-Man works because Superman already existed,
Right.
And we talked about this on the podcast, where cinematically there couldn't have been a Spider-Man movie in the 70s because because we were still kind of cinematically on Superman. Superman kind of had to come and go before Spider-Man could be established cinematically. And that's why I feel like the Watchmen didn't work, because it was too soon for Watchmen. We weren't completely done with standard superheroes yet. The Watchmen needed to come sometime after the Marvel cycle.
But then they pressed forward with the bleakness of the Watchmen going forward. I guess financially the Watchmen must have been enough of a success for them where it was like, let's make the entire DC universe like this.
But I don't think Watchmen was a financial success. That's the weird part about it.
Sure, I think it was.
Oh, was it?
It might have been.
Because that was a super expensive movie. And,
that was one of Zack Snyder's first movies, and that's what led into all the, that led into Man of Steel and Justice League and all that stuff. That's why Zack Snyder has been in control ever since, because Watchmen did so well that he kind of latched on from there on out.
I see. I liked Watchmen, and I enjoyed Watchmen, but I don't want everything to be Watchmen.
Budget was 130 to 138 million. Box office taken was 185 million.
So that seems like that's
probably a break even.
Yeah, that sounds like a break even?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not a huge success for them, but I think that it made a huge cultural impact, more so than a financial impact. But it seems to me like Wonder Woman and Aquaman were two of their more successful entries, and both of those are way more optimistic.
Right.
Than anything else they've been doing.
Well, those movies, they kind of broke away from the whole Zack Snyder thing. By that time, Zack Snyder had already left Justice League. The executives in charge kept changing. So you had like the Zack Snyder film universe was like under one banner, and then Justice League was supposed to be the switchover, and it was under Jeff Johns, who did a lot of the DC Comics work. Most famously, he did a lot of like the Flash work, Flash stuff, and he was taking over. And then Justice League bombed, and they got rid of him, and somebody else took over. So there was somebody else that was in charge up until like Shazam, and then it was like, well, now all DC movies are just not going to tie into each other. So the sequels are just going to be loosely tied into each other, and they're not going to be building up. They're not going to cross over and build up to anything else, which kind of sucks because that's what I'm invested in. That's what I kind of want to see. That's what they do in the comics, and that's what I wanted to see. I like Marvel, but it doesn't all have to be Marvel. There are other things that can not be Marvel and still be successful, but they don't even want to try. They just want they want money. They want the money, and that's it. That's what bothers me. Where it's like, I can't you have both?
I mean, everybody wants money. I honestly don't feel like DC. I would rather them focus on one movie at a time than plan a bunch of crossovers that don't work.
But I remember being so excited in I think it was it Batman Robin? No, it was Batman Forever, where they just mentioned Metropolis, and it's like, oh, they mentioned Metropolis. Holy shit!
Yeah.
So it hints to a bigger. It doesn't have to be a huge big crossover, but the fact that other things exist in that property is just exciting enough,
Oh, sure. But I think that basically the thing that really the thing with Marvel's universe is, and again, I feel like we're treading water we may have already tread, but they had 3 really solid Iron Man movies. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that if Iron Man wasn't so good, they wouldn't have had that strong base. That was the thing with the Universal monsters. They did the same thing where it's just like, we're going to plan these 75 movies all at once. And it just sort of all fell apart because there was no focus. They do have to make at least one good movie at a time until they feel like they've created a demand for more.
It's all a risk too, because you look at the Universal movies and it's just, that one movie fails, that whole thing fails. If that one movie's in the middle of everything, then you're screwed.
Yeah. I mean, even Star Wars, they didn't add the episode 4 thing until after it had already been released and they knew it was a hit. So, speaking of hits, I think I'm going to hit the restroom, and we'll be back with more Sleepless Nights of Insomnia.
Greetings, Insomniacs, who just caught Mr. Lobo contemplating where his life went wrong. This morning I came downstairs and I'm like, what's all this crap? And I realized all this crap is me. I mean, not the me, but a little me. An actual figure of Mr. Lobo. You have been asking for figures and bobbleheads for over 10 years. It's like, Mr. Lobo, I gotta have a doll. I gotta have a this. It's like, that's a hard game to play. And we wanted to do it right, We didn't want to sell you a bunch of junk. And if you want the Mr. Lobo, please, today, go to Mr. Lobo. Actually, go to OSI's Store Envy store. So the OSI Store Envy shop. Pick up your Mr. Lobo. It says pre-order, but they're ready. They're ready to go. So get your Mr. Lobo Naughty Noggins today. And you think they should get him today? Yes, he does think you should get one today, so don't disappoint him. This is Mr. Lobo signing off.
Get your Mr. Lobo Naughty Noggins today at www.osi74.storenvy.com.
Paul, stop. We already did that. We did that last segment.
Oh.
But we're still talking about Justice League. They want to release this. With those of you out there who aren't nerds, they wanted to release this. I don't know. I don't know if the chronic diarrhea is to blame for all this, but I feel like they're trying to go back to everything that's been sitting on the shelf or is half made or is sort of made or is something that properties that they still have under contract or under control, but somehow, some way, they started talking about the Zack Snyder version of the Justice League, which was not released. It was handed over to Joss Whedon, right?
Yeah,
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon.
Well, I can't say that kid's name to save my life. That kid who is my own age.
That kid. I mean,
I might be older than him.
What had happened was that Joss Whedon. Well, the rumor was that they were trying to push him out anyway and try to change gears and become more Marvel-like and less gritty. So the rumor was that they were trying to find ways of pushing him out because he had already filmed, I think, like more than half of, if not the entire thing of Justice League before they decided they wanted to reboot it. Not to make the story sad, but his daughter had committed suicide, so he had to leave the project for that reason. And when they did that, they used that as the chance to usurp that, to kind of turn that around, get Joss Whedon in there to add up the yucks and stuff like that, to rub the Avengers funk all over it, because that's that was his baby. Yeah. But I think ever since it had come out, it had flopped. And I think Zack Snyder started the movement himself, because he's been doing a lot of hashtag release the Zack Snyder cut. He had done a lot of interviews and stuff where he's like, yeah, it's done except for like some of the animations and stuff like that. It's pretty much done. It just, Warner Brothers just decided to change gears. And he's like, in a day and age where they release the director's cut of almost anything and everything and the extended edition and this and that why not release, they have it. It wouldn't cost them anything more. It would cost them a little bit more to do the animation or whatever, but just finish it and just put it out there. What harm does it do? But it was just kind of so weird because like everybody up until that point was shitting on Zack Snyder. All the fans hated Zack Snyder. They hated the gritty Batman. They hated the gritty Superman. They hated the whole rush job of Batman versus Superman. They hated all this stuff. They hated Justice League. And then it was like, oh, the Zack Snyder cut? Oh, we love that. We want that. It's like, what? Is this the same audience? This is social media, I guess. This is how social media works.
And
you just hear from different fans from it.
And how do we're talking about canon and storytelling and all that. It's like, on the one hand, it's like, I don't like, the part about that bothers me is that, when you buy a ticket to a movie, I feel like you enter, you're being made a promise that the people who were making that movie had an idea, committed to it. This is the story they wanted to tell. This is the direction they're going. And you are trusting them to take you to that magical place for 2 hours or whatever. And to totally go, but if you want this, hey, how about this thing? Oh, well, if you like this story better, we'll just do it this way. Oh, you didn't like the last 3 Star Wars movies? No problem. We'll make 3 more Star Wars movies, and you'll like those better. I mean, I feel like, what kind of confidence do you have to even buy that ticket anymore if the people who are running the store don't even know what they're giving you? And there's always take backsies. There's always a way to just, make you pay that $7 over and over again, or $14 now. Sorry, I'm living in the 90s. Make you pay that however much it is, insert amount of money here to see that movie. $14.99 for a freaking digital download or whatever ridiculousness that think they can get.
It was $25 to buy Scoob.
Oh my God.
And it was digital, and I didn't even get a fucking disc.
Oh my God. You paid $25 for Scoob?
$25 for Scoob. Because it's,
Scoob.
because of the whole chronic.
We're saying the same thing.
Yes.
Scoob.
Because of the whole chronic diarrhea, this Scoob wasn't released in theaters, so this was to make up for it not being in theaters. But at least this version, because I've seen with Trolls World Tour, you paid $25 and you had 24 hours to watch that, and that was it. At least with Scoob, I get to keep the goddamn thing, but I didn't get a disc with it. It's just that's it. And I just missed I apparently just missed the special edition where, if you bought it within a certain amount of time, they gave you a bunch of old Scooby-Doo episodes. No, I just got the movie.
Wow. That is unbelievable. The amount of money, the industry is so fat and overfed, and it's just like, oh, we're used to fleecing people. It's like the record industry. It's like, oh man, we're used to people paying $20 for 4 cents worth of plastic. What are we going to do now that we can't completely gouge people anymore? I guess we might as well go under, because we can't possibly make these movies less expensively. We can't possibly charge people a little bit less money and make it more reasonable for a family to go to the movies. We'd rather salt the earth and just go down in flames before we actually, try to give people value for their money.
And at least you got a 4 cents piece of plastic. I didn't even get anything. I got ones and zeros. I got something that 2 months from now they can decide, hey, you know what? We don't want this out there anymore. We want somebody to buy a new edition, so we're just gonna rescind this digital media and make you buy it a different way.
And you and I, Paul, we agonize over it. We're like, oh man, someone paid $1 for this podcast. I hope it's worth their $1 for them. maybe we should start offering refunds if they feel like the show's not worth $1. I mean, we agonize over that dollar we're trying to, that it's on a volunteer basis.
We're trying to justify it.
We're trying to Justice League it. We're trying to justify it. All the work that we're doing, and maybe we're hoping that that we're giving people their dollar's worth, and then it's just people who are just fleecing the public, just fleecing. And they're fleecing their investors too. I mean, the whole industry is just run on the whims of rich crazies who don't know anything, have no connection to the audience, nor do they care. They're just it's just frustrating.
So that's your review of Scoob, huh?
That is not my review of Scoob. But it is a little bit, we are talking about cartoon characters and Warner things. It is interesting. I guess everything, they're going back to everything and just trying to repurpose it, right?
Well, everything that was popular in the 80s is now up for grabs again, so it's coming back around.
Is it just nostalgia, or is it just sort of like we're just going back to whatever made us $1? Anything that ever made us $1, maybe there's one more nickel we can squeeze out of it.
We're the first generation that was basically fed actual 30-minute commercials for like our entire lifetime, so we were already bred to, for that kind of merchandising. So is it that kind of the thing where it's like they planted the seed back in the 80s, back in the early or late 70s. So now it's time to reap all that. Now all the man child and man women, all the man and women babies, the women man babies, the man women babies. Yes. I guess we don't have to be gender specific. Adult babies, adult diapers,
all the adult diapers of the world, like ourselves. I guess because young people. And let's make gross generalizations now, right, about everyone. But young people don't buy as much physical stuff, right? They're happy with a download, right?
Right.
Older people are the ones who are buying the toys and the T-shirts, right? Is that the assumption? The thing is that, like, unfortunately for me, like, we have our hardcore fans who see the value in the work that we do, but more often than not, it's much easier to sell a sticker or a T-shirt than it is to get people to pay for a piece of entertainment. I don't know if that directly relates to any of this.
They want to remember that media instead of actually sitting down and watching that media. So with that sticker, they can just remember that thing instead of buying that thing.
I guess that's true. I guess
that's how that works.
I get, for some people it is. I think it's the idea of it that they really like more so than the thing itself. Or like I feel like with Star Wars, it's kind of like that too, where it's like a status symbol. That's all my toys on my shelf. That's just all my memories of Star Wars. I don't even remember the last time I watched the original trilogy, to tell you the truth. I guess. There's probably something to be said for that too. I mean, as much as I like Scooby-Doo, I think the last ones that I really watched was the one that had me on it.
When did this happen? You were in Scooby-Doo when this happened?
I was on Scooby-Doo, yes, sort of. Apparently they did an XP. It's called an XP of Mr. Lobo, where they kind of did an inspired character off of me, sort of. I think there were several influences in there, but Professor Ruffalo was a character on Scooby-Doo who was the slime monster. This was at the time we were doing our slime line DVDs, Cinema Insomnia. Beware the Beast from Below is the episode, and it was the Scooby-Doo Mysteries Incorporated. The villain in the first episode kind of looks like Mr. Lobo. And at first I thought maybe that might be a coincidence. I had actually gotten a phone call from someone at Cartoon Network asking me if I was watching the new Scooby-Doo. And I said, no, I'm not. And they said, well, we think you should. And it's like, okay, well, thanks. And I think I will. And I had no idea why. And then suddenly a flood of people saying, "Oh my God, that's so Mr. Lobo. That character looks like Mr. Lobo." So I started getting a little bit of that. And then I asked some people that I knew who were animators, and they're saying, "Yes, that character is somewhat based off of you." So that whole season has a bunch of weird, obscure references to horror and sci-fi things. And like I said, I don't think I'm the only influence on that character, but there's definitely some Mr. Lobo inspiration, I guess. I mean, I can't deny it anymore. Wikipedia tells me it's true.
And if the Wikipedia tells you it's true, it must be true.
Yeah, it has to be. But it is an interesting thing because I feel like that and Chris Jericho are the two things that people ask about all the time. What's it like being a character on Scooby-Doo? What's it like having Chris Jericho call you a fag? Those are the two things that people ask me about the most. Being vaguely referenced on a TV show and being vaguely insulted by a wrestler. That is what's going to be my epitaph on my tombstone.
I'm going to make sure that's what's written on it. Mm-hmm. Even if I have to put spray paint on it.
I mean, like envisioning the Scooby Gang with their flashlights finding my headstone. Here lies Professor Ruffalo. Chris Jericho called him a fag. And we're sorry for using language like that on Scooby-Doo. We won't, about connection with Scooby-Doo. We won't ever mention Chris Jericho again.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with more Sleepless Nights of Insomnia.
We now return to the ABC Saturday Preview Special.
I think I like the Super Friends because I'm into macho images and, Batman, Robin.
I liked Alakazam, Scooby-Doo, Puppy Hour.
Dudley Do-Right. I liked him because, actually, I liked his horse.
Soupy Sales.
Rocky, Squirrel, and Bullwinkle, his friend, they were buddies, and then Boris and all the bad guys.
You are not a nice man.
I can't believe it. Cubes. Magic.
I think you're all wet.
I'll get you for this.
He needs to cool off.
Bruno, help me. Nice going, Rubik. Gotcha. Oh, no.
Rubik will take care of bad men.
That cube can do anything.
Now, there's a new group that's invading ABC Saturday Morning. Now, they're not animated. They're very much alive, and they're fast becoming one of the hottest things in the music business. This year, they bring a different approach to learning a new language. Here they are. Menudo on ABC. Saturday morning shows started on Saturday morning. The next three debuted in prime time. As a matter of fact, the first of these was the first series broadcast in color on this network.
Meet George Jetson.
Another evening series featured the adventures of an explorer and his 12-year-old son, Johnny Quest. And here's the smoothest operator in the alleys.
Top Cat. The most effectual Top Cat. Whose intellectual close friends get to call him DC. Providing its with dignity. Top Cat. The indisputable leader of the gang. He's the boss, he's the best, he's the championship. He's the most tip-top Top Cat.
You know, we could go on with this until, well, I guess Saturday morning, but our time's about up. And before we go, here's a look at the shows that'll be giving you that special feeling this fall on ABC's Saturday morning.
Paul, I know we're not talking about Scooby-Doo. Or we're actually kind of are talking about Scooby-Doo, but we're not talking about Scoob, the movie Scoob.
Yeah, I mean, there is a fine difference between what we're talking about, whether or not we're talking about Scoob, and we're definitely not talking about Scoob. We've drawn that line in the sand. Paul Tidd can tell us whether or not we're right or wrong.
And when the trailer for Scoob came out, I just thought, and this is sort of still not talking about it because I'm talking about the trailer. I just thought that Scoob is talking too much. I mean, I don't know if I could handle a whole movie with Scoob narrating, a la the Wonder Years, his whole life to me with that voice. I think I could only take about 3 minutes of that voice.
Do you prefer Scrappy? Is that why you rather have Scrappy narrate?
Gosh, no, I hate.
Hey there, Scoob! I don't even remember how Scrappy.
Power! No, I hate all of that. I remember when Scrappy Doo was introduced, they had these Friday sneak previews. You remember those, Paul? Where like it would be like the Friday before the Saturday morning lineup would start.
Like I'd probably watch those more frequently than I actually watched the Saturday morning stuff.
It was all the news you could use. You could fake your way through any conversation about any cartoon after seeing that sneak preview. Oh yeah, Turbo Teen? Yeah, the guy turns into a car. Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, I mean that's all you need to know. I mean honestly, Big Friday night, the Big Friday thing, all you needed to know about Rubik's is just what you saw on Big Friday. You didn't need to actually watch Rubik's.
Rubik the Amazing Cube. Now, those of you who don't know, there was a very popular puzzle game called Rubik's Cube, and you would work it with your hands, and it was just basically a multi-sided cube that you could you try to get all the sides a different color, or there would be a red side or a blue side, a yellow side. And so, if you turn the pieces, turn this cube together, you create, a Rubik's Cube. You look at it, Google it, for God's sakes. But anyhow, it was so immensely popular. I remember, That's Incredible and TV shows like that. They always have like a bunch of wonder kids, quickly doing the Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds and slamming it down, and all the sides would be perfect.
I used to just peel off the stickers and eat them.
You peeled off the stickers and ate. Didn't even do the puzzle.
It was all black, all sides. So
yeah, you won.
I won, and I ate something.
Time to go to the emergency room, get your stomach pumped. I would pry them apart with a screwdriver, and then put all the pieces in the right place, and then it would snap together with all the things on the right side. I don't think that's how you're supposed to do it either. The other thing I thought was funny is, do you remember Crazy Magazine? That was like the Mad Magazine knockoff.
Kind of.
They had a Rubik's Cube solution on the inside back page, and it was basically like a paper cube that you cut out and glued over the top of your Rubik's Cube that had all the sides already finished on it. So you just would glue this box around your Rubik's Cube that made it look like it was done.
I think I remember that page. I ate it.
That's wonderful. But anyhow, Rubik's Cube was not a personality. It was not a character. It was just a game, It would be like if someone made a cartoon out of a yo-yo. It doesn't make any sense that it would be a anthropomorphized character. And they made him like a little kind of magical brownie kind of thing, where they put like a funny little elf face on the front of the Rubik's Cube, like a blue face with long ears and a funny round nose. And I think sometimes they even gave him feet. And it was horrifying to see this puzzle cube with a face and feet. I remember I showed it to my kids, and they were like horrified. Like, don't ever show that to me again.
I'm never going to finish a Rubik's Cube ever in my life because I don't want to see that thing.
So anyhow, they tried to do a cartoon. Pac-Man had a cartoon, so Rubik's Cube thought, why not? We need a cartoon also. But anyhow, they had Dragon's Lair, right? All of those were amazing. Paul, do you know what year that Saturday morning special where they had the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, and it was Weird Al hosting it, I think.
Yeah, it was like, I remember it like yesterday, 1984. It was a great year.
Yes. George Orwell's 1984 with Weird Al Yankovic.
I remember that because didn't that episode take place in Disney?
No. No, that was not Disney, Paul.
Not
that
Disney?
was, I believe that was Knott's Berry Farm. The amusement park, you mean? The amusement park where they filmed the special?
Interesting,
Yeah.
because it was on ABC, and ABC, well, I don't know if they were owned by Disney then, but it would have made sense to be Disney.
I don't think they were then. Yeah, ABC definitely would have put it in Disney World had it been a little later. But Hanna-Barbera always kind of filmed their stuff in amusement parks. Like Banana Splits was shot in an amusement park. Kiss versus the Phantom of the Park. I feel like Hanna-Barbera just figures like, how do we get some cheap production value? Oh, okay, we'll just film in an abandoned amusement park. Isn't that what all the villains on Scooby-Doo do? They just set up in an abandoned amusement park?
They run through an abandoned. I mean, anytime you mention Scooby-Doo, that's the first thing that I just imagine. It's just a haunted amusement park. Because isn't that's in the opening credits?
Oh yeah, it is in the opening credits. But so they filmed this thing in an amusement park, and they're riding the bumper cars, and they were on the roller coasters, and it's Weird Al Yankovic and I believe there was a guy in a Scrappy-Doo costume, and then I think a Scooby-Doo too, right, Paul? They had a Scooby-Doo and a Scrappy-Doo, and they had the voice actors doing the voices. I don't know what sad bastard was inside those costumes in a hot amusement park all day.
This is furries back before there were furries. So
this is what this created furries. This is why we have furries today, is because of mascot costumes at an amusement park.
Is it because Scooby-Doo and Scrappy made it? Is that how we have furries today? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, Paul. I am not trying to say that Scooby.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Scrappy were yiffing each other. That never happened. So let's strike that from the record.
Copy, stricken from the record.
They would have these previews, and they would just basically have a bunch of skits wrapped around, host segments wrapped around little. I don't think they showed whole cartoons, did they? They just showed little.
They're just snippets and stuff like that.
Snippets, right? Just kind of a highlight reel of each cartoon that you can expect.
Sometimes maybe like the title sequence.
You know, the Littles or Trollkins or the Snorks or
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. It was an exciting thing that we looked forward to every year. These kind of this wrap up of what was to come. I mean, Saturday morning cartoons were a wonderful thing once upon a time. I mean, you worked hard at school all week long, and for whatever reason, they figured, mom and dad are hungover on Saturday morning, and they've got all these these adults that just want to sleep in, and they just took advantage of that and just made a bunch of great programming for kids early on Saturday morning, because you got all these kids that are used to getting up early to go to school.
I don't know about great programming. I mean, how great programming what happened in 1988 when the cast of Mr. Belvedere hosted? I mean, what was that like? I don't know about great programming.
Didn't they have Growing Pains host one of those things?
Perfect
too,
Strangers, Growing Pains, Roseanne Barr, and the cast of Family Matters. I love this one. 1985, hosted by Tony Danza, featuring Mary Lou Retton and the droids of Star Wars.
Oh no! Oh God!
I've got all sorts of different types of emotions going through me there with that sentence.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like some of my internal organs just imploded when you described that to me.
I remember like Punky Brewster, and I remember like it was like an episode of Punky Brewster where they would have a rap, in the beginning and the beginning and the end, which was almost like an episode of Punky Brewster, but in the middle was like all these great cartoons, and then they would just break.
I guess
for the cartoons,
in the case of Punky Brewster, she had a cartoon, so maybe they were trying to bridge over. Hey, this character from this cartoon is the real life version of this character you're going to see in the cartoon. Not that I want to see Punky Brewster, but it is interesting. That one at least has a somewhat vague connection to the Saturday morning stuff. Right. Most of the time I feel like they were just using the fact that these kids were kind of being held hostage here. It's like, okay, we know you're here to see what all the new cartoons are going to be, but we're going to force you to we're going to advertise to you some of our prime time stuff. So it basically turned it inside out on itself, to where instead of it being a prime time advertisement for the Saturday morning programming, it became exploiting our Saturday morning programming to force kids to advertise to kids our primetime programming. But Scrappy-Doo was in that one in 1984, and the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, I believe, was the first version of with Scrappy. I don't know if Scrappy ever appeared in any of the. I guess he did appear sometimes in some of the earlier ones. Did he? My memory's getting foggy.
I'm trying not to remember that because I actually have such a distaste for Scrappy Doo. I'd rather more Scooby Dumb than Scrappy. Some dum 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 dum.
Why is it Scooby Dumb? That's the thing that I don't understand. Okay, Scooby Dumb. Let me just state this, and I hope I'm not repeating myself with this because this is something that I feel really strongly about. Scooby Doo, for a talking dog, isn't the brightest, sharpest tool in the shed, and he can't even speak real words. Okay, he's got the all right, Raggy, and then Scooby Dumb comes along. First of all, they call him Scooby Dumb, but I mean, he can speak actual words. He just has a Southern accent. That doesn't automatically make him dumb. He has a hat. He wears a hat and a necktie. Okay, and then he would do his little signature dum 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 dum. Right? Mm-hmm. He knows Beethoven. He is cultured enough to know Beethoven.
But my phone knows Beethoven. That's like its default mode is dum 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 dum.
My kids don't even know Beethoven. I have a 20-year-old that thought Beethoven was another dog. Beethoven is not a dog. Beethoven is a composer of classical music. Even Scooby Dumb knows this. And he's not Scooby Dumb. He's just Southern.
Hokey Finoki Swamp in Georgia.
Wow, just some gross characterization. This is why we have racism in America, is because of our gross characterization of the South. We've just kept them angry forever by just making them look like idiots.
Now, how did they relate to Scooby D?
Was Scooby D a cousin?
Well, Scooby Dumb is a cousin to Scooby Doo, and Scooby D is a cousin to Scooby, but I don't know how she's related to Scooby Dumb.
I kind of thought she was sort of coming on to Scooby, but maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But I guess they're just dogs, right? I mean,
if
dogs,
it is that Southern stereotype, you might not be wrong.
Incest? Is it really incest with dogs, though? I mean, don't dogs just do each other anyway?
I mean, that's why they call it doggy style, right?
Oh, God damn it, Paul. We're talking about we're talking about Ginger and Marianne and how you're a Mrs. Howell.
Yeah. Oh, right? Lovey. Yeah. Lovey.
So I'm a Velma person. Like, I think there are people who like Velma, people who like Daphne. Are you a Velma or a Daphne?
Well, I mean, is there a third option? I mean, there's not really a third option. I mean, I guess it would have to be a Scooby Doo.
You're going to go doggy style again on this.
Back to doggy. It always goes back to doggy style.
God damn it. Oh, Jesus. God. No wonder furries love this show. I have so many furry fans. Like, Mr. Lobo has the most amount of furry fans of any horror movie host. I will be in a men's restroom at a Chinese buffet, and a guy in a fox costume will be using the urinal next to me, and he'll be like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Lobo, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, hi, Mr. Foxy. How do you know? Look, can we talk about this after we're done with our business?"
Wait, I'm going to try to push that fox costume deeper into my closet and hide it so that nobody else knows that I stalked Lobo in a fox costume.
Hey,
God, you haunt me. You haunt me as the antique dealer. I haunt you as the furry. We'll call it.
That was you. You're Mr. Foxy. Now that
Foxy.
Makes sense.
I'm pantsless. The lack of pants should have given it away.
It bothers me how much furries are maligned, because I don't think that that's fair. I mean, because to be honest, like, nobody would ask to wake up one morning and be attracted to animated animals. I don't think that anyone would ask for that. And if you're wired that way, you're already going to have a hard road. Why would you punch down that person? I just feel like that's just not necessary.
Being a child of the 80s, that all you have to do is just say the Olympics.
Animal Olympics.
And the whole cheetah thing and
Cheetara? I was so hot for Cheetara from the Thundercats.
No, I was talking about the cheetah from the Animal Olympics.
Oh, just the cheetah?
Yeah, the cheetah chick. It was her and the goat, and they had a relationship by the end of the movie. Hot stuff.
Oh,
hot stuff.
Animal Olympics. The short animal, not Animal Olympics. Yeah, it was Animal Olympics, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Or was it Animal Olympics? But you're talking about that animated special.
Yes. was supposed
with
to be
all of
several.
those very extremely well animated and cut athletic animals. I think the animators of the 70s and 80s created the furries of today. I mean, not genetically created, but I feel like people. Well, maybe a lot. I know some people grew up like when Bugs Bunny would dress in drag.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think people are lying if they say they didn't at least once think that Spider-Man that Bugs Bunny was hot in drag. Bugs Bunny is pretty hot. We had that. We had and I would also blame the Walt Disney Robin Hood. I feel like the animals in that almost directly look like the furries of today. Like I feel like the animals in the Walt Disney Robin Hood, I feel like that stirred a lot of anthropomorphic animal feelings in some young people that they probably never could get over.
That sounds like the perfect note to go out on.
Somehow you try to not talk about Scoob and it goes right to furries. This is how this has happened. This is how far we've fallen, Paul. This is why we should have canceled.
You have been listening to the Sleepless Knights podcast, or should we say pODDcast?
PODDcast.
Emphasis on the odd. Our theme is by Mars Homeworld at Dead House Music. Our opening announcement is by Ophelia Necro. She does a radio show called Suicide Watch. And you could reach Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com or find me on YouTube, YouTube/Mr. Lobo, MISTERLOBO. Mr. Lobo on Facebook, Facebook/MR.LOBO, or on Twitter at Mr. Lobo, MISTERLOBO.
Or you can find myself, Paul Sanders, or better known as Bestow TV, at Bestow.tv, on YouTube /Bestow TV, on Twitter at Bestow Prod, PROD, and on Facebook, Bestow TV.
If you want to place an advertisement with this podcast, and gosh, why wouldn't you? We could be talking about you right now. Contact us, Mr. Lobo at cinemainsomnia.com. That's MRLOBO @CINEMAINSOMNIA.com. Or support us on Patreon. Patreon supporters get to hear this podcast before anyone else and a lot of other great stuff, right, Paul?
Sure.
Doesn't get it better than that, right? So come join the fun at
patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast.
That's
patreon.com/Sleepless Knights podcast.
Please stay up with us next week for another Sleepless Knights podcast. Or should we say, pODDcast.
pODDcast.
The best thing about being an insomniac is never having to say goodnight.
Good night.